There are a lot of shiny Pokemon out there that for some reason turn pink. Some are cute, some are weird, and some are surprisingly tough, but they all share that rosy glow. So I figured why not embrace the pink and try to beat Pokemon Violet using only shiny pink Pokemon. And while there may not be a shortage of options, that doesn't make hunting for these rare variants any easier. And yes, I'm adding extra rules again because apparently I just can't help myself. I'm addicted to the struggle, okay? This run is going to be pretty in pink and hopefully pretty powerful too, so let's get into it. Of course, we begin the run and are immediately presented with our choice of starter. And if you know your shinies, you'll know that the Pokemon that I'm gonna choose is none other than Fuecoco. Pretty conveniently, shiny Fuecoco and its evolutions are all pink. And since this is an opportunity we just can't pass up, I decided I would differ from my usual challenge runs and actually keep our starter for once. But obviously, this little guy isn't shiny, so to help remedy that, I sent myself a second Fuecoco from another account, and I can now start breeding them and eventually hatch a shiny. Quite a long-winded and unusual intro, I know, but we do what we must for the pink shinies. So I set up this picnic table and began to play my favorite game, the waiting game. And this is a game you can play for a long time. And I mean a long time. And once I had accumulated a decent amount of eggs, I would run around a bunch to hatch them and, of course, get nothing. I mean, what do you expect? It's shiny hunting. I love it and hate it. So I started the process all over again, picnic table, waiting and hatching, until finally, after way too much time, we managed to get our hands on the first Pokemon of the run. Everyone please welcome Crocs. Now, having a fire type this early is super amazing since the first two gyms are weak to fire attacks, but just to make it that much easier, I wanted to get a specific and super powerful attack. So after traveling over half of Paldea, I eventually arrived at the northwest of Castle Royal Lake and got myself the Fire Blast TM. Teaching this to Crocs is gonna make him zoom through the first few gyms. But before we get to those, I also decided to catch a couple cool new Pokemon. The first being this LeChonk that I named Chunkster. LeChonk always reminds me of the pigs in Wind Waker, especially this pink version, and once she evolves, she's gonna look even better. Next, I wanted to try catching a Flamigo, an amazing Pokemon that has the pretty unusual dual typing of flying and fighting. Not many other Pokemon have that, and it would be super nice to have those covered. But things don't always go to plan, and instead, I stumbled across this shiny Drowzee. It's pretty lucky that this also happens to be pink. So I of course caught him and named him Bowser. Maybe we'll get Flamigo next time. For now though, it's time to take on the first gym. Crocs use literally any fire attack. Bam! Yeah, like I said earlier, having a fire type this early makes the first gyms a breeze. Every Pokemon went down in either 1 or 2 hits. And thanks to this amazing performance, Crocs even evolved after the fight to be even stronger. We now have a really overpowered pink Crocalor. Isn't he cute? But I'm still not over it. Over what, you ask? Well, Flamigo, of course. I just need to catch one. It doesn't feel right without it, and honestly, it would be an incredibly huge help against my next opponent. So back to shiny hunting I go. And after exploring this marshy area for a while, I managed to find the one I was looking for. It took more balls than I'd like to admit, but we got her and named her Amigo. With Amigo on our team, the next battle against the first Titan was incredibly easy. Low kick does more damage the more the enemy weighs, and Cloth is already weak to fighting attacks, so it was a double whammy of damage. So with the crab dispatched, next up we have the second gym battle. And as I said earlier, with Crocalor knowing Fire Blast, this was just another sweep. Nice and easy. After this battle, I spent some time preparing for the next Titan, and while leveling up my team, Chunkster evolved into an Oinkologne. Now she just looks like a normal pig. It's like the shiny version is just meant to be. It just makes sense. With our new pretty pink friend, we can now take on Bombardier. And this is actually the first battle that we couldn't just sweep with super effective moves. So I started off by using Crocs to fire off as many fire blasts as I could, and fortunately, since Bombardier missed an attack, this allowed us to get past Phase 1 using Crocs alone. For Phase 2, we don't quite get the sweep as Crocs goes down on turn 2, but I still have plenty of Pokemon left, so I throw out Chunkster. And with Arven's help, this phase is also not a problem, and that's another Titan down. Now there's one particular pink Pokemon that I've had in mind since the start, and I just knew I absolutely had to catch it in this run. One that I've had a ton of times before, and one that has never let me down. That's right, it's time for the return of Cena. I love the idea that I can bring back a familiar face between these challenge runs. It's like seeing an old friend again. Maybe I'm a little bit too attached to these shinies. Anyway, I traveled through the Asado Desert collecting materials along the way and found the area where Tinkamon spawn. And after riding back and forth for quite some time, I finally spotted that unusually colored hammer. Hey Cena, it's good to see you again, welcome back. But despite spending all that time getting our old friend back, we won't actually be using her in our next battle. That privilege instead goes to Amigo, as Hakamo's dark-type Pokemon are weak to fighting attacks. We'll start the battle with a double kick, and well, there goes Pawniard. For the Starmobile, we of course use low kick, and wow! Man, so far every battle has been super easy, huh? My team may be a little bit overpowered at the moment, but why not get even stronger? So I thought another good addition to my team would be a Toxel. That gives us both electric and poison coverage and will come in super handy in the later battles. But during the long hunt for a shiny Toxel, we actually came across a shiny Flaafy instead. We do love seeing that, but it is disappointing that it's not a Toxel. I do wish that it had a second type other than electric, since we're still gonna be getting Toxel, but there's no way I'm passing this little guy up. So I caught him and named him Fluffers. Man, that is just simply incredible. But back to Toxel. This took another big chunk of hours riding around, but there he is! Look at that little guy hiding in the grass. How adorable! I decided to name this pink boy Troxy and started searching for our next catch. That's right, I'm getting a third one. We're gonna prepare a ton now so we can smash through the upcoming battles. And the next Pokemon I want is a Goomy. Now, I know this may be a little controversial since Goomy is only half pink, but look, being pink isn't all about the looks. When, as a society, did we start judging things by how they look and not how they make us feel? And when I see pink, I think of cute and cuddly things, and what is more cute and cuddly than Goomy? I mean, I don't make the rules, except I totally do. And I say Goomy's in, okay? Now it's Nemona time. Hey, Nemona, how do you like my 100% fully completed pink team, huh? Well, she probably won't like it much after I decimate her team with it. Starting with Chonkster versus Rockruff. I first use Dig while Rockruff increases its evasiveness, and after I burst out of the ground, Rockruff takes a ton of damage, leaving it on just a slither of HP. To finish it off, I quickly use a Mud Shot. Then, against Palmy, I once again use Dig, and this time we actually do get the one-shot KO. For Nemona's ace, Chonkster's attacks don't do all that much damage, so I get a clean swap to Cena, and a few draining kisses is enough to get us the win. That wasn't too bad right now. Hopefully we can keep this up in the future Nemona battles. We now have to face the next Titan Earthworm, and well, it's a steel type, and I have a Flamigo that can use low kick. Yeah, getting Flamigo was so worth it. She's made the first few Titan battles so incredibly easy. Next up, we have the Iono gym battle, and since electric Pokemon are weak to ground attacks, my plan here was to give Dig to Crocs and hope that, along with Chonkster, they would be able to get the job done before fainting. Having two Pokemon that can use super effective attacks is incredibly helpful in these gym battles, but because I didn't want them to faint too early, I chose to start with Fluffers and fire off some Electro Ball attacks. Even though Wattrel is an electric type, it is still susceptible to electric attacks, and 2 Electro Balls is enough to finish it off. With Wattrel down, we were now up against Luxio, and this is where I bring the big guns out. After a clean swap to Chonkster, I start using Dig, and boom! Luxio is down. I use 2 more Digs on Bellybolt before fainting, but of course we still have Crocs. With this, I can just keep spamming Dig, and Bellybolt eventually goes down, followed quickly by Miss Magus after I use Fire Blast. The plan worked perfectly. After Iono, I wanted to take on Mela, but before I could, a Pokemon that we haven't seen in a while was ready to evolve. That Pokemon was, of course, Bowser, who transformed into Hypno. Not super useful now, but it will be later. Alright, Mela, let's start with Crocs. I first tunnel underground with that ever-useful Dig and barely do any damage? what? Was that really super effective? I guess that's what Torkoal's high defense stat gets us, but some damage is better than none, so I try and try again. After as many digs as Crocs can handle, Torkoal is in the yellow and I swap out to Fluffers, giving me the chance to use Takedown and finish Torkoal off. Next up, we just have to deal with the Starmobile, but sadly, Fluffers goes down before he can get a hit off. But it's no problem. Once I can bring Chonkster out, I can start whittling it down with more dig attacks. Again, we don't do much damage, but every little bit helps, and with the combined efforts of Goomster and Bowser, we manage to prevail over the Firemobile. Now, we've done quite a few battles in a row without powering up too much in between, and that fight was way closer than I would have liked, so I decided to spend some more time here leveling up my party and evolving a bunch of my Pokemon. Starting with Fluffers, who evolved into an even pinker Ampharos, giving us access to even stronger electric attacks, then Drowzee, who lets us see the amped up version of this shiny Pokemon. So with our team powered up, next up is of course Kofu, who specializes in water type Pokemon. And well, I just evolved 2 electric type Pokemon, so I don't think we're gonna have much trouble here. The battle begins and goes pretty much exactly as you would expect. Fluffers and his Thunder Punch blows through Veluza no problem, while against Wugtrio I use Cena's Slam. With Kofu on his last Pokemon, I just need to bring out Drowzee for an easy win. Wait, what? Crabominable survived? Drowzee fainted? What? Oh no, and we're down to our last Pokemon as well. Ugh. Amigo, please? Hit first. I select Wing Attack and... whew, that should not have been that close. Whew, Kofu, where did you come from, brother? Well, I guess since that was such a close battle, we should probably catch another Pokemon to make sure the next fights aren't like that, right? And the Pokemon I wanted was going to be Hatenna. But while riding around the Hatenna spawn areas, it happened again. I accidentally found another pink shiny. Like, it makes sense, this is also where Deerling spawns, but man, I am not too mad about that. And it's the spring form, the only one that's actually pink. So I catch this Deerling and accurately name it Deer. Emboldened by our random shiny find, I stuck around the area for another few hours before finding a Hatenna that I caught and named Lily. Then I leveled everybody up and evolved Lily into Hatchrim, and finally headed over to face off against Atticus and his poison Pokemon. And even though we have 2 pretty strong psychic Pokemon, this is still gonna be quite a tough battle. I started with Chonkster to get as many dig attacks off as I could, and this allowed us to get past Skuntank pretty easily. Chonkster didn't last too much longer, however, as she succumbed to poisoning while underground. I then brought out Bowser to fight against Muck, and a couple Zen Headbutts was all we needed to take him down. Now for the last Pokemon before the Starmobile. We have the Mini Starmobile. I use Hypnosis to put it to sleep, then swap to Crocs to attack with Fire Blast. This destroyed Revavroom and let me use Dig against the Starmobile. But then things started to get a bit worrying. Crocs didn't do much damage at all before going down, and Lily did a bit, but also fainted very quickly. I tried bringing Bowser back out, but once again, the Starmobile was just too powerful. I only had Drowzee and Fluffers left now, so I was kind of on the ropes here. My only saving grace was that the Starmobile's attacks didn't do much damage to Drowzee, and thanks to that, I was able to use enough Thunderbolt attacks to get the win. Whew, these battles are really starting to get pretty close, huh? And because of that, I thought now would be a good time to evolve Crocs into his final form. Skeledirge, this should help a ton. Alright, let's see how we do against Larry. I once again started the battle with Crocs and relied on his brute strength to just power through Larry's Pokemon with Fire Blast. This got us past both Kamala and Dudunsparce, which was a nice surprise. That evolution really was a huge power-up, huh? For Larry's final Pokemon Staraptor, I tried using Cena's Rock Smash and play rough, but he didn't quite get to finish the big bird off. Thankfully, we still had Amigo in reserve, and one double kick was more than enough to get the job done. Why was that so much easier than Atticus? Shouldn't the gym leaders be way more powerful than random students who are just skipping school? I don't know, man. Anyway, afterwards, things took a turn for the worse. I really wasn't prepared at all for the Nemona battle that comes right after the Larry battle, and, well, Nemona gets away with it here. This is always one of the more difficult Nemona battles since you don't get the chance to change your team up between fights, so I'm not too bummed out that I lost here. We'll get back to her later on. For now, though, it was time to face Rhyme. With our newly evolved Cena, who now has a huge hammer, I think we have a pretty good shot. But wait, Oh no. Deer just evolved and it's no longer pink. Oh, why would you change color like that? Come on! Why is the shiny Sawsbuck just a lighter brown? Ugh. Well, I'll deal with that in a second. Anyway, it's rhyme time. I start off with Cena and Crocs, who very quickly take care of Banette before Mimikyu takes out Crocs. I then bring out Lily, but a hit from Mimikyu and Houndstone, along with my, brutal swing, causes Lily to faint before she can even get an attack off. Not great, and now I'm down to just Cena and Deer, who isn't even pink anymore. But that's okay. Deer also doesn't even manage to get a single attack off before it's beaten by Rhyme and, well, my brutal swing. I'm sorry, Deer, it had to be done. You weren't pink anymore, okay? Thanks to this brutal swing, though, I actually get a triple KO. And now Rhyme and I are down to our last Pokemon. I wonder how many people can actually say they got a triple KO in a single Pokemon attack. Probably not many. Anyway, Toxtricity is certainly a force to be reckoned with, but when put up against Mycena, that force is kinda like a gentle breeze. A couple of brutal swings and we get another win. And another win means we get to power up our party once again. Starting with evolving Goomster into Sliggoo and then traveling to the highest peak in Paldea to find myself a shiny Sneasel. Once I got my hands on this little pink creature, I battled some wild Pokemon and used some of my rare candies to evolve it into a Weavile. And so we have a new team member, Sneasel. And with Sneasel on our team, the next Titan should be a breeze. I use Surf as much as I can and just look at the Titan's health. After using just one Pokemon, it's almost down already. After switching to Crocs, we get past Phase 1 and Phase 2 isn't much harder, really. Torch Song is just so strong. Next up, we have an opportunity for revenge as it's another Nemona battle. But this time, we actually get to choose our team. So I begin with Sneasel, who misses? Really? Come, ugh. Okay, Cena it is. We use Gigaton Hammer, and that's more like it. Lycanroc is down. A quick play rough on Palmot gets us past another, and the same goes for Sliggoo. Who knew Cena was such a counter for Nemona? Well, I certainly didn't. For Nemona's ace, we of course have Meowscarada, but Gigaton Hammer puts the cat in the red, and I still have 3 other Pokemon to use. And just like that, we win. We caught our revenge. All right, next up, we have the 2 final gyms, starting off with Tulip, the Psychic type trainer. And with Crocs knowing both Bite and Shadow Ball, I'm pretty hopeful that we'll shred through this team. Funnily enough, both Crocs and Farigiraf start using Bite, and what? Crocs fainted? You're telling me this giraffe can bite harder than Skeledirge? Look at her teeth! She's a freaking alligator! Alright, I guess it's time to rely on Cena again. The old reliable play rough gets us past Farigiraf and then Espathra, and Cena is looking unstoppable at this point. And my point is further proven as a single Gigaton Hammer gets us past Gardevoir 2. But Cena doesn't stop there, taking on even Florges without breaking a sweat. What an absolute champion. And then we have the final gym battle against Grusha. And, well, I have Skeledirge. That's pretty much his worst nightmare. Fire Blast melts through Frostmoth and Beartic, and then we're hit with an unfortunate liquidation, but Amigo and Cena team up to take down Titan. For Altaria, we only need 1 Gigaton Hammer, and that's another W for us. Super quick, super easy, and Cena once again gets to show off. And with all the gyms done, there was one more Pokemon that I wanted to catch. And that Pokemon was Mareanie. Having this Pokemon in particular would help a ton against the upcoming Starmobile, so I lingered around the beaches for way longer than any sane person would and found what I was looking for on this little island. I named her Mareanie in reference to my recent Shiny Water challenge, but of course, as it is, this won't help me all that much. We still need to evolve her. So after using some candies, we now have a Toxapex. And with this, Ortega doesn't stand a chance. So before I bring the big guns out, I start with Troxie, who manages to beat Azumarill, Wigglytuff, and Darkspun. And once Troxie falls, I quickly bring in Cena to use Gigaton Hammer, and oh, Ortega's done, just like that. Huh, I didn't even need Mareanie. That was way easier than I was expecting. Well, I'm not gonna complain, but let's see how we do against the final Titan. I send Troxie out once again, and his electric attacks are simply too much for Dondozo. We then have to beat Tatsugiri too, but now Goomster's dragon attacks are just too strong. And even the next battle against the fighting Starmobile crew doesn't give us any problems. Cena destroys Toxicroak and Annihilate, then Lily beats Passimian and Lucario, and finally Amigo gets us the win. My team may just be completely full of monsters at this point, and they're kind of OP. But now we're heading into the big leagues, and it's time to start wrapping things up, starting with Arven. First off, it's Crocs versus Greedon, but Greedon doesn't last very long at all as one Fire Blast and one Torch Song blows it away. It's a very similar situation with Garganacl as, again, Crocs shows them who's boss. I then swap out to Cena and things really start snowballing here. We beat out Toadskrull, then get a clean swap to Troxie to beat Scovillain. Out next is Cloyster, but Troxie is ready with Thunderbolt. And finally, we have Mabostiff, who at this point is vastly outnumbered. We do lose Troxie here, but that's not a problem. Lily is all we really need to get the win. Our next foe to face is going to be Clavel. And honestly, my team is so varied at this point that I'm convinced there's nothing and no one that can beat us. I said it at the start of this run, but there's so many shiny pink Pokemon, and thanks to this, we can build a team that covers so many different types and barely has any weaknesses at all. We do lose Pokemon here and there, but as soon as they're out, I can bring in the perfect replacement. For example, Crocs beats Oranguru here but falls to Poltergeist, but then I can just bring out Cena to get us past Poltergeist and then bring out Goomster against Houndoom. I just need to make sure I build a good party before I go into the battles, send out the right Pokemon at the right time, and not make any major mistakes. And also, don't get unlucky, which, sometimes does happen. And as I'm saying this, I'm now down to one Pokemon in this battle. What happened here? Oh my good god, Lily is on 15 HP. Psychic, please finish off Quaquaval? Oh. Whew, okay, that was way closer than I thought it was gonna be. I guess that shows why you shouldn't get cocky. I really thought I was unstoppable, but that really could have gone either way. Okay, lesson learned. Let's not make that same mistake against Penny. Thankfully, this team is much better suited to take on the Evolutions. First off, we use Amigo and her low kick to take care of Umbreon before she's retired by Jolteon. Against Jolteon, I can use Goomster's Earthquake for a quick 2-hit KO, and then Troxie can be used to quickly get us past Vaporeon. Flareon is a bit of a problem as it does a ton of damage to Troxie, but I still have Goomster, so another Earthquake and we're way in the lead now. I stick with Goomster and use Acid Spray on Leafeon, and for Penny's final Pokemon, I use our beloved Cena and bring the hammer down. That battle went so much better than the Clavel one. And with Penny beaten, there's only one thing left to do. It's time to face the Elite Four and prove that we can become a pink champion. So team composition here is really going to be my best friend. I need to use as many super effective moves as I can to finish these fights as quickly as possible because it's a war of attrition with the Elite Four, and I'm not super confident about it. So first off, we have Rika, who specializes in ground types, so I need to use water, grass, or ice attacks. Mostly, at least. I immediately choose not to do that and instead use Shadow Ball against Wishcash. Similarly, Fire Blast and Torch Song are enough to get us past Donphan. However, once Dugtrio comes out, we can actually start using the strategy that we said we would do before with Mareanie. And there we go, one liquidation gets the job done. I use it again on Camerupt, and yeah, it's that easy. Mareanie is unfortunately taken out before she can hit Clodsire, but that's okay. We still have Sneasel who can chip away, and then the rest of my party who can whittle it down. Next, we have Poppy, who is weak to fire, fighting, and ground attacks, and I have my boy Skeledirge. Fire Blast, boom! Torch Song, boom! Yeah, this one was a Crocs sweep, and it wasn't even close. Crocs took them all out and only lost half of her HP. What an absolute beast. Next, we have Larry, and this is a very similar situation. Being weak to electric attacks when your opponent has Toxtricity and Ampharos is a little unfortunate. I start by using Brave Bird with Amigo to quickly one-shot Tropius, and then use Bite on Staraptor, who dies shortly thereafter to the recoil from Brave Bird. Once those are down, I can bring out Fluffers and get some real damage going. Oricorio gets destroyed, Altaria gets bodied, and after bringing out Troxie, this boring-looking Flamigo gets pulverized. And that's another Elite Four member beaten. Let's see how we do against the final one, shall we? That, of course, being Hassel. I start with Goomster, who fires off a Draco Meteor, and that's one down already. One Draco Meteor, and there goes Flapple too. I stick with this attack against Dragolgy, but unfortunately, we miss one of our hits, and Goomster takes a well-earned nap. I then bring out Cena to use Play Rough, and, well, Cena can do no wrong. She would never let me down, nor run around and hurt me. I'm never gonna give you up, Cena. You're too precious. Anyway, Dragolgy gets beaten, then Haxorus, and finally Baxcalibur. Whew! What a run. But now it's time to face the best of the best, the champion of Paldea, a title which very soon will be ours. It's time to face Geeta. And this may just be the most difficult battle yet. As usual, I choose to start with Crocs. This lets me fire off a super effective Shadow Ball to take his Pethra down in one shot. Next up, we have Avalugg, and it's almost too perfect again, as just one use of Overheat is all I need. What a great start, we're already 2 Pokemon ahead. Next is King Gambit, and guess what he's weak to? That's right, fire! I fire off another Overheat and what? No, we avoided it! But haha, Crocs avoided an attack too. Okay, well, we can't use Overheat anymore, so let's try Torch Song. We shoot off this bird, and ooh, it's not quite enough. Unfortunately, Overheat has dropped our special attack to the point where King Gambit is able to return his own attack, and ouch! Crocs finally goes down. Next, I bring out Goomster, and oh my god, he's glowing. He's ascended. After causing an earthquake, King Gambit is done for. Once Go-Goat takes the stage, Goomster swaps places with Cena, who returns the favor. Take that, Go-Goat! For the penultimate Pokemon, we have Veluza, but nothing can stand up against Cena and live to tell the tale. Skittersmack gets the job done. And now we're finally here, Geeta's last Pokemon. It's Glimora. Or should I say, Glim no Mora, is just one single Gigaton Hammer brings us to victory. The MVP, Cena! We did it. We are now champions of Paldea, but our job isn't quite done yet. We still need to prove to Nemona that we're the better trainer once and for all. So we meet in the town square for the final showdown. Let's go, Mareanie versus Lycanroc. I start with Liquidation and ooh, it's just barely not enough. We have to hit one more time, but now we're faced with Pawmot. I try to use Liquidation again, but can't quite make it as Pawmot is the faster Pokemon, and Double Shock hurts a lot. I once again bring out my MVP to use Play Rough, and like I said, Cena never lets me down. Pawmot is done, and Earthworm comes out next. I don't feel like a drawn-out battle here, so I instead choose to swap to Crocs so we can use the super effective Overheat, and we missed. And Crocs is now at 14 HP. Great. Thankfully, Overheat is powerful enough that we only need to land it once, and we managed to do just that on the very next turn. Crocs, of course, can't do much here against Goodra, so I get a clean swap back to Cena and use my favorite Play Rough. After 2 attacks, we're zooming ahead as we're put up against Dunsparce. I use Gigaton Hammer here for some major damage, but it's not quite enough. Even after using Play Rough again, Dunsparce just barely holds on and Cena finally falls. Such a trooper though. Next we have Drowzee, who can very quickly finish off Dunsparce, and now we've made it to the final Pokemon of the run. The last thing we need to beat is Meowscarada. I select Poison Jab, and oh my goodness, that's a lot of damage. We almost one-shot the final Pokemon of the game. But plot twist, Meowscarada is faster, and on the next turn hits back with Flower Trick. This does insane damage too, and Drowzee goes down. I only have 2 Pokemon left now, but Meowscarada is so close to being beaten. Please, Lily, use Dazzling Gleam. Oh, Shadow Claw almost ruins us, but we survived it. We used Dazzling Gleam, and that is it. Nemona is beaten. We have won, and all with the most glorious shiny pink team around. Thank you for watching. Like the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed it. Till next time.